Hey, all, Mac here. This is going to be a relatively quick video. I just wanted to make an update, one final update for the league on my Golden Charlatan build. And now it's gotten to a point where I would say it's, relatively min-max. The final upgrades for this build are in the mirrors, and I really don't have the patience to farm anymore. This league has been, honestly, really bad, I think, in terms of, like, content. As far as enjoyability goes, though, I think I actually had a lot more fun than I expected to, given the state of ground drops. I'm sure a lot of other like people have already commented on it, so I'll spare my opinions. I will say though that I played longer than I think most leagues, which is kind of crazy. But now there's like TFT set coming out as well as PoE 2, which I do plan on making videos for. I will be playing PoE 2 that first week. It's kind of in line with some of my exams, so the videos are going to be a little bit slower. I probably won't make any like day one, day two uploads, and if I do, they're going to be really brief. But I might also have some like group play content coming. We'll see. Um, but yeah, do expect the PoE 2 content a little bit after the first couple days, and I will be obviously taking the holidays off, spend time with friends, families, so I won't be playing as much then. So videos after then as well. But I do think there's going to be some cool builds I can maybe come up with in PoE 2. I genuinely feel I'm kind of better at build making in that game than PoE 1 somehow. So there's that. But regardless, enough about all that. What are the upgrades I made to this build? Well, one thing that the build, Golden Charlatan build always struggles with is early map power, right? Like you don't have that much power early on in the maps. You don't have enough to really like get ramped up sometimes, and it can be really frustrating, like going into a map getting one shot by like a juiced rare. So instead, I decided to like buff up the initial power a little bit. Getting frenzy on hit is honestly really important. Uh, so like having a source of frenzy on hit, I didn't stress how important it was, but it does give you a lot of your like baseline cast speed and damage. And yeah, so if you don't have that, focus on that. But regardless of that, there was also one other node, which is Unholy Might, Overwhelming Malice. So Unholy Might gives us a 25% chance to apply Wither, and we get this on crit. So we kind of want a Diamond Shrine, but at the same time, with Spark, you're hitting so many times that, like, on average, right, you have, at baseline, I have 1.78% crit. So you would need a little under, like, a little over, like, 60 to 70 hits, with Spark to crit once, and, it's not going to proc very often without Diamond Shrine, is what I'm trying to say. So, the node is, like, you can do without it, but losing Wither, I think, genuinely is just not worth it when you're, like, investing a decent bit into Wither. So yeah, definitely take on Overwhelming Malice on a large cluster if you can. With Wicked Pal and Unspeakable Gifts, this is actually cheaper than this one, since you don't have to path to Dark Ideation to get these two, and most people just want the Unspeakable Gifts. Wicked Pal is like a nice add-on to it. I didn't really actually make any upgrades on the tree, so that's about it for that. However, I did make some upgrades to my gear, which I really want to go over for anyone who's like still trying to min-max a build. I do think these upgrades may be out of proportion price-wise, but I just really did not care. I had the currency and I had the ability to like self-craft some pieces, so I just went for it. So I got some new graphs. I got a projectile speed graph. There is one that has like a corrupted implicit with 1% proj speed per some amount of strength. And that could be a good option if you aren't playing Kasperos and you're actually stacking like a bunch of stats for whatever reason. That might just be for an entire other build, but that is an option to get an insane amount of proj speed on Spark, which obviously just translates to more damage. The actual effect of this doesn't really matter too much. It's just a little bit more damage, might help kill some mobs and start the chain of pops. What I really want to focus on is this Heart of the Flame. So this Zoth draft gives us a permanent Heart of the Flame. You'll notice I've had this up the entire time. This is only really possible with enough CDR and skill effect duration, depending on how much you have duration, how much duration you have, or how much CDR you have baseline with your tree or whatever other items. You might need tier both tier 1 like I do, or maybe like tier 2 tier 1 or tier 2 tier 2. Um, Basically how I'm having this up all the time is I'm reserving a tiny bit of life with a level 1 vitality linked to arrogance. This means I'm never on full life, which means this is proccing every single time it's off cooldown, which is basically permanently. So it's always going to be on me. I have an extra 4.5k life going into maps, which makes me substantially tankier compared to before. I think this is a really good upgrade that people can do, but do keep in mind this craft is also very expensive. I think I paid like 35 or 40 div for it, so yeah, be prepared to shell out a bit. I was fishing for a increased area of effect implicit on this golden charlatan. I think I double corrupted close to 150 div worth of swords. I've hit fortify, I've hit resolute technique, I've hit momentum, additional accuracy, crit, AS, like literally everything. I have not hit increased AoE yet, not even with another modifier. So at the end of the day, I'm just playing with the enchant now. My old one did not have the enchant, so I got an extra 5% AoE. Woo. But yeah, nothing more to that. I was fishing for mana multiplier so I can maybe fit another aura in. But after speccing to the like arrogance vitality, I really wouldn't have any like other slots left. So I just opted for like a +2 minion Raven mask. I tried to corrupt a bunch of goals. They're like 30 div each. So like double corrupting these is really not profitable and really not like even worth doing, I think. I just did it because end of the league, why not, right? Hitting +2 minion is nice. If I had +2 minion socketed, that would be obviously like the best possible outcome, but though actually I don't think that would actually gain any benefit. Never mind. Like ignore me. I was originally again just trying to like fit extra auras in with this, but instead I got some higher level golems, which just give me slightly better buffs. The levels on these actually don't really help the buffs all that much, but it will make them much tankier, meaning I have better uptime of the buffs. Now, the major upgrade that I actually made to the build that I think is really worth highlighting is the gloves and the new ring. So the gloves are +2 frenzy gloves, and these are really, really bad in terms of what other stats they have on them. The little bit of life and ES recharge are the only valuable things. The ES recharge actually gives me enough to like just permacast at baseline, meaning I don't run out of ES for Eldritch Battery, but I mean, that's not why I bought this pair. This pair was just the cheapest at 150 div for +2 frenzy. The next best one was I think like 250 div with despair, and I just didn't have enough like currency after buying the ring to buy that, and I really don't want to farm that much more currency. The other ones are all like frenzy, flicker strike gloves. They're like in the mirrors, but yeah, +2 frenzy obviously here just gives us an opportunity as well. Like if I wanted to upgrade further, I could maybe get like a separate influence on the goal, get an influence headhunter, and then I wouldn't have to have an influence ring at all. I mean, this ring could be another +1 frenzy ring, which will ultimately give us one more frenzy charge. The downside is I would also need to get cursed with despair on hit on the gloves, and there's only one pair that exists currently on trade that I'm aware of. Now, the biggest upgrade I did for the build was this ring. You're going to see it in the thumbnail, obviously. I had a mirror just like lying around after making that video. I was farming like crazy. And honestly, I'll go over the strats of like how I make currency this league, and like shelling out for onslaught, like basically a mirror for onslaught, I think was actually worth it. It was really annoying to try to fit it anywhere else that was like PoBing, so I just ultimately settled to get it on the ring. And lucky for me, the only one that I saw at the time that was even available was +1 frenzy onslaught for a mirror. So obviously, like the suffixes here suck. They're like the regen sucks, but I just couldn't care less. Like I had 3 stats I needed on this ring. I guess 4 stats. But yeah, getting onslaught means we get 20% attack, cast, and move speed. That's really major for this build, and since it's on hit, we literally get at the start of the map. Where is this build struggling? The start of the map. So like whatever makes our baseline power without shrine buffs better, I think is just very valuable, especially for the smoothness of the build. So yeah, this is definitely like an investment I'm really happy with, and I'm probably taking this entire build into standard. I like keeping the really cool builds all together, so I can look back on them just a little bit, maybe see go revisit some like old mechanics. But yeah, um, as far as like how I actually farmed a lot of currency this league, I originally started with like Harvest, and on like TR I played a bit of Harbinger, but I ultimately farmed a Mage Blood with just Harvest yet again. I was mainly playing a Bleed Slayer for most of my farming. I started with Caustic Arrow / Toxic Rain, but I quickly transitioned to Bleed Slayer, which was just much better. And that Bleed Slayer also took me into T17s, farming Scarabs, which is where I spent most of this league, was farming Scarabs to fund my builds. The Scarab farming on this build specifically, I think was hitting sub 2.5 minutes in Fortress per clear. And that was, when I was calculating it, it was essentially getting me almost 30 div an hour, which it was like 20, like high 20s. And Nemesis Scarabs were like in the 18C, like each range. So the fact that I was making that much running double Nemesis and double adversaries is kind of wild. But I do think that the speed of the build is the main reason why, because I also got more boss frags and I could farm like more maps at a time, less rolling time overall, you know, same diff. But the strat that I've been farming like closer to the end of the league has been Harby Scarabs, and Harby Scarab strat is there's a couple of videos out on it. What's really nice for that strat about this build is that when you go up to 1 King Harby and you start killing rares, everything's tightly packed together, so explodes are high value. And not only that, once you kill a couple rares there and you get the invasion beyond mobs spawning rares, your build is online for the rest of the map. You don't really have to worry about bricking maps. I still occasionally bricked normal maps because there just weren't any rares. But with that, you know, Harbinger strat, there's just no way you brick a map. So it definitely has been the real, like, real fun mechanic, I'd say, for this build to farm. And I think, again, anytime you're going to play this build, you're probably going to try and juice maps with as many rares as possible. Otherwise, your build is really just gibbed and you're not. You'd be better off playing literally any other league start build even. Now, that being said, I do think there's actually a lot of potential for the Golden Charlatan to be an early league setup. And so if you have a bosser, or you start on a bosser, and you're able to self-farm this sword, you can essentially make a build that would otherwise be honestly fairly crap. Like, baseline, this build has the DPS of a league starter, and honestly the tankiness of one too. However, with shrine buffs rolling, this build becomes probably one of the strongest builds in the game, if not one of the strongest like independent builds in the game, minus like the Hundreds of Mirrors armor stackers. So I do think that you have an avenue where you can self-farm, or like maybe just wait for someone to sell one of these Golden Charlatans, and you put together this shrine build. You don't even need Astrolab to get it started, in my opinion. You can play anything. You don't have to get influenced versions of these. Blunderboard is very cheap. Goal is very cheap. Headhunter obviously isn't, but you don't even need a Headhunter, I think, to, you know, get this build viable for T17 maps. And I would probably change some other things. I might play Cast on Crit even, just to get a little bit more damage early on, and perhaps a little bit more tankiness with Fortify and all that. As AG Fortify obviously is also going to be expensive early leagues. So definitely there is an avenue to play this as an early game build. And I do think that in the future, in like the next PoE 1 league, if they don't change the sword, I might look into a strategy for currency farming where I can get into T17s much earlier, especially if there's no other strong build that's able to do it with low cost. But yeah, just some food for thought. Again, I think this is one of the coolest uniques they've added to the game, and I really hope that they keep it where it is. If they're going to do anything to it, maybe just like nerf the drop rate of it if they wanted, you know, like reduce the availability. But I think it's already like gated behind Uber, and I think that's plenty for such a cool item. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this league went. I think that genuinely a lot of problems existed with this league, but at the same time I had a lot of fun playing it, and I really hope everybody else did too. I hope some of these build guides were helpful, and yeah, I will see everybody in PoE 2. So until then, ciao.